Okay, so next up, we're going to focus on labels in HTML forms. So labels are exactly what they sound like. They let us add captions to individual elements in our form. And the reason that we use them rather than just put a paragraph or some plain text is that labels are really important for making our site accessible. So if someone is visually impaired or blind and they access our form, so let's say they're trying to sign up, their screen reader software that they're using is going to look for label tags, and it's going to use those label tags to know what each part of the form corresponds to. So it's really important. It's also a nice way just to add a little caption, as you can see here, explaining what each part of the form is used for. So there's two syntax we're going to cover. The very first one looks like this: create a label tag, and then we actually put the input inside the label tag. So you might say something like username, then we're just going to take the username input and put it inside. So we'll put password colon, and then put the password input inside. And there we go. That's all we should need to do. Refresh the page. We now have two labels that correspond to our two inputs. So there's an alternate syntax. Rather than having your inputs nested inside of the label, we actually can do them completely separate, and then we connect them in a slightly different way. You can see here we have a label and it has a for attribute set to username, and then we have an input with an ID equal to username. So as long as these match, screen readers and other accessibility software will know that this label that is for username corresponds to this input with ID username. So just to show you that, I'm going to go ahead and just duplicate this, comment it out just so we have it. And then what I'm going to do is move the input tags so that they're separate from the label tags. And the next thing is to connect them. But right now, although they look the exact same, for software for people who are visually impaired, these are not exactly the same because they're not actually connected. There is no line connecting this label to this input. So in order to do that, we use the for attribute and say for username. And then over here, we need to say ID is username. And we'll do the same thing, label for password. But just to be clear, the name does not matter. We do, however, want to make sure it's nice and meaningful and it's not just gibberish, but it does matter as long as it matches the ID. And I refresh. It looks exactly the same, but you can just trust our data is now connected. We have a label for every input.